Chapter one's kind of a prologue, an introductory chapter, and some of the major themes in Isaiah you're going to see here in chapter one. He's going to talk about how wicked the people are. He calls them laden with iniquity, they're burdened with their own sins. And that's going to be such a strong theme. He's talking to the covenant people, right? The Lord has chosen this people not because they're special in any way, like they're inherently better than anybody. He's chosen them because of this covenant that he's made with Abraham, that in Abraham's family, all families of the earth will be blessed. And the Lord is going to use the people of Israel, in this case, the people of Judah, to bless the entire earth. And he does that in all kinds of ways. But if the covenant people aren't going about fulfilling their end of the covenant to serve the Lord and to be his representatives in the world, the Lord's going to insist that they do that. And he does that through gathering and scattering. And Isaiah is going to be really concerned with that. But when the covenant people that are not obeying the Lord, are not being faithful, there's going to be consequences to that. And they don't have to be, supernatural forms of destruction. He's saying your own sins are the things that are burdening you, right? This is a totally fixable situation, but your own sins are the things that are bringing you down. Um, but that's not the whole story, and it's not as a result of God's unfaithfulness that Israel and Judah are going to suffer. It's going to be their own disappointment. But one of Isaiah's strong themes is that the Lord is so faithful to his covenant that he is going to redeem Israel in spite of their own iniquities. Um, and one thing you'll notice as I'm going through, I'm going to be reading from a slightly different translation. One of the complications with Isaiah is that Isaiah writes very poetically and he writes very symbolically. And then we read a translation of Isaiah, and I love the King James Version, but it has its own poetry and symbols that it's kind of adding on top of the scriptures. Um, and so I'm just going to read a more basic translation. It doesn't change the content of Isaiah. It just helps us to understand it a little bit more as we're studying it. So he paints this picture of Judah as particularly wicked, as deserving of destruction. Um, but he also uh, he ends chapter one by saying Zion shall be redeemed. This is in verse 27. And those who in her who repent by righteousness shall also be redeemed. That this is going to be a faithful city. Um, and so that idea of wickedness bringing destruction, righteousness being bringing redemption, that's going to be a major theme. Another way to think about it is there's going to be periods of scattering as a result of people's own disobedience, and periods of gathering as a result of the mercy and grace of the Lord.